first day of December. Oh, it's 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana. Hope you're doing well. You can call into these live shows at 709-589-4406. We're in Canada. We got some headlines from the early days of Fukushima. We're going to cover tonight. Hi, everybody. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Did the nuclear industry poison Earth? And every species for millions of years with radioactive fallout. And there can only be one answer. Yes, obviously. It's pretty sad, eh? That I consider giving us a few clicks and bells, stuff like that. Because we're on YouTube, and YouTube censors you pretty heavy, so everything helps. The Japan nuclear disaster was put on par with Chernobyl. That was nice of them. Cars destroyed in Iwate Prefecture, March 11th. Earthquake, tsunami. Search went on for the bodies. The mangled tsunami. It was 600 to 1,200 miles of coastline, looked like that, up to 10 kilometers inland. Japan decided to raise its assessment of the accident. Japan did, bless their hearts. At the crippled Fukushima Daiichi, crippled. These are all key words. The crippled. How about the building that doesn't exist anymore? See, Chernobyl didn't look like this. Didn't go kapooey, right? There's 4 reactors and 8 fuel pools melted down at Fukushima. And Chernobyl was a single reactor. It was a new reactor, didn't have any fuel pools. And each of the reactors, not counting the fuel pools that are missing from 4 reactors, each reactor core is equal to about 100 Chernobyls, pure uranium, pure plutonium. And there's around 36 reactors. This was April 11, 2011. So by April 11th, they knew the buildings were gone on day 6. They were where everything was melted down. Reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 had detonated. And we have pictures of Reactor 1 and Reactor 3, but Reactor 4 right alongside of it, for some reason we don't have pictures. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Or videos. The decision to raise the alert level from 7 to 5 on the scale amounts to an admission that the accident at the nuclear facility is likely to have substantial long-lasting consequences for health and for the environment. Long-lasting, you say? How about for millions of years? Is that long? I'm not sure. Is that long in this time, this day and age? Some in the nuclear industry have been saying for weeks that the accident released large amounts of radiation, but the Japanese officials have played down the possibility. Well, that's an understatement. This is the stump of Reactor 4. That's 9 reactor cores gone. Each of them makes Chernobyl look like a paper towel. Chernobyl's not a paper towel. The new estimates by the Japanese authorities suggest the total amount of radioactive materials released so far is equal to about 10% of that released in Chernobyl. 10%. So the Deputy Director General of the Japanese Nuclear Regulator, Nuclear Industrial Safety Agency, had said that these buildings were 1/10 of the Chernobyls. Obviously, this is just unacceptable. I mean, the reactors and the fuel pools are gone. We contaminated the entire planet with this stuff. I find it just unconscionable that they would suggest it's only 10% of Chernobyl. It shows you how the cover-up story was brutal. The whole nuclear industry had to participate. All the universities worldwide had to participate for that lie to last. Which means all the nuclear academics worldwide have thrown humanity and the species and the future of humanity and the species under the proverbial bus. He stressed that unlike at Chernobyl where the reactors self-exploded and fire fanned the releases of the radioactive material, the containment at the 4 trouble reactors remained intact overall. Let's have a look at that here. How intact is that one, I wonder? Those 2 reactors, they look pretty intact to me. Maybe they got a bit of damage, Dana. They're crippled, Dana. Oh, that's right, crippled. So when the reactor blows up, ejects the reactor cores and the fuel pools out of the buildings, you can count on the nuclear industry to come out and say that everything is contained. When the buildings themselves don't even exist, you can count on the nuclear industry to come out and say that it's 10% of Chernobyl. And the buildings themselves, that each reactor is 100 Chernobyls, and there's 9 reactors in each building, injecting the reactor cores and the fuel pools out of the buildings. Well, boy, you can expect the whole nuclear industry worldwide to come out and cover it up, because they don't care about you, or the planet, or anybody else, or even themselves, for goodness sakes. An international nuclear event scale, a level 7 nuclear accident involves widespread health and environmental effects and the external release of a significant fraction of the reactor core inventory. Significant! It ejected the reactor cores out of the buildings. That's reactor 3. Right out of the building. And there's not a nuclear scientist on the planet looked at that and didn't know it was all gone. It's quite heartbreaking that this industry is allowed to exist for a single day after what it's done. It's heartbreaking. If the world was aware of what was going on, this industry would be over in a flash, literally in 10 hours. The scale, which was developed by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the worst humans conceivable, and countries that use nuclear energy, well, it's not the countries, it's the academics, the universities, the journalists that have cut our throats and discharged us and humanity and the species, leaves it to the nuclear agency of the country where the accident occurred to calculate a rating based on complicated criteria. Yeah, complicated, like it never happened. Let's just pretend it never happened. In Japan, previous ratings of a 5 placed the Fukushima accident at the same level as 3 Mile. Like 3 Mile didn't look like that at all. It's impossible to trust a nuclear scientist or nuclear academics. It's impossible. It'd be pretty gullible to trust them ever. It'd be pretty gullible to trust a university. How sad is that statement? How frightening is that statement? Because you better believe it's true. It's an admission by the Japanese government that the amount of radiation released into the environment has reached a new order of magnitudes. A professor in the Department of Quantum Engineering. A new order of magnitude, really. That's nice of you. The fact that we have now confirmed the world's second ever level 7 will have huge consequences for the nuclear industry. What about humanity? What about the species? It shows the current safety standards are woefully inadequate. And Nishiyama said tens of thousands of terabecquerels. It was around £5 million per building, for goodness sakes. The scale of the radiation leak. Somehow now that's considered a leak. The plume covered the whole planet in 26 days. That's a leak in the nuclear industry's context. And you wonder why everybody you know is sick. Idano, I can't say enough bad things about that person. So the Japanese government would order Lydia and 4 other towns to prepare to evacuate. This is over a month later. Officials are concerned that people in these communities are being exposed to radiation equivalent to at least 20 millisieverts. And referring to this stuff in millisieverts or microsieverts is not helpful. You're talking about physical atoms that you breathe in, that you consume when you're drinking, or when you wash or cook your food or do your laundry, that are contaminating everything forever, which could be harmful to human health over the long term. It's harmful right away. So when the radiation and anthropogenic man-made physical atoms are in your body attacks each one, and if there's a million there, it'll attack every single one for the rest of your life with white blood cells. For the rest of your life. And each one is going to pulse energy almost at the speed of light every second. For the rest of your life. And your body has to repair all the damage from each one of them every second. And it has to attack the main one relentlessly for the rest of your life, because it treats it as a foreign object. It doesn't recognize it as an element from the solar system, because it's not. That's why we call it man-made. And so the health effects are quite frightening. And you're compromising your immune system too. And evacuation orders will come within another month for Katsuro, Nami, Lydiat, and parts of Minamasoma and Kawata Mata. Mr. Adano said, "This is insanity." You're 2 months later. Now they picked up 30 million one-ton bags after this. 30 in all of these communities included. 30 million. And so clearly these people should have been evacuated immediately. But that's a death sentence for the nuclear industry, so they wouldn't do it. It's better that everybody gets sick and died than the nuclear industry gets a black eye, we like to say. I agree with them. Everybody should die so the nuclear industry can look good. Every bird and whale should show up emaciated so the nuclear industry can look good. It's better that 1 billion people die the nuclear industry gets a black eye or a fat lip, yeah? It's a strange industry, and everybody sits and lets them vomit all over them. The equation, union of unconcerned scientists. Possible source of leak at the spent fuel pools at Fukushima. And when was this story? Date there? March the 19th. So that's a couple of days after the last reactor detonated. And 4 of them had melted down, and 8 fuel pools had exploded and caught fire and blew up and blew up and caught fire and caught fire and blew up. Not necessarily in that order. And the Union of Unconcerned Scientists said there was a leak at one of the spent fuel pools at Fukushima. The current focus of concern in Japan now is the pools at the reactors where the spent fuel is stored. A concern. Do you see any fuel pools? And a frog in the throat, and a throat, and a frog, and a frog, and a throat, and a throat, and a frog. Some of this spent fuel is still very radioactive. It's all very radioactive for millions of years. If the spent fuel pools get too hot, they can suffer damage and release significant amounts of radioactive gas. No, come on. Clearly, there's nothing wrong with these buildings. Could eventually catch fire. Oh, well, I mean, who are you going to believe? You're going to believe your own two eyes, or you're going to believe the media? Here's the media saying they're at the top of the building that doesn't exist. Saying they're 150 feet above the stump of Reactor 4. In the fuel pool, no less, watching them getting the fuel out. Do you like the Union of Unconcerned Scientists? Or they call themselves the Union of Concerned Scientists, but clearly that equation is up for debate. The Union of Unconcerned Scientists, where evil grows in the dark. Da, 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 da. Yep. Hi, everybody. Hugs for everybody. James Lucid has come out with a whopping 7 more songs the weekend. I would play the last one at the end of the show tonight, maybe. Not maybe, I know we will. Similar fuel damage within the reactor cores would be surrounded by the reactor's primary containment, so that a much smaller fraction would get out unless there was a significant breach of the containment. Well, the journalist said there was no breach. They wouldn't lie to you. Look at it over there. You think that's a breach? Water needs to be added to the spent fuel pools in Fukushima, since heating by the spent fuel, because so when a reactor boils water by splitting atoms. And those atoms are pulsing energy every second. It keeps boiling water, right? But the problem is when about 14 months later or so, the fuel becomes very brittle. And they can't keep it in the reactor, so they put it in the pools at the top of these buildings. And now it's got hundreds of trillions of microscopic cracks in it, so even more radiation is escaping the fuel. And it's still boiling water, except it's no longer in a containment. And so it's going to boil about 120,000 liters off a day. Each liter is enough to poison everybody in your city or your community for millions of years. There's 1,000 fuel pools doing that every day worldwide. Invisible plumes covering your planet all day, every day for 80 years. And you wonder where all the species are gone. In addition, reports from Japan say the spent fuel pool at Reactor 4 is leaking. Reactor 4 is leaking. This is pretty intimidating, actually. So here's some pictures from the original. I'll just put them up there to keep them in the... So that's Reactor 4 over there. Do you think anything's leaking out of that building? Or am I just a drama queen? Unit 3 and 4, figuratively speaking, literally and figuratively, do not exist at that stage, right? A possible source of the leak in the Unit 4 pool may be the seals around the door or gates on one side of the spent fuel pool. It's where they transfer the fuel from one building to another building. So they have 2 pools. And typically what they do is they'll take the fuel, they have gates. So all the pool, everything is underwater. And they'll bring it up and they'll put it in one pool till it cools down quite a bit. And eventually they'll transfer it over to the other one. Some of this stuff is up there for decades. And the problem is they don't have a repository anywhere on the planet, so these pools are completely full. They are located between the pool and the area above the reactor vessel. There are cement with metal liners and are roughly 20 feet by 3 feet gates. When fuel is moved between the pool and the vessel, this whole region is filled with water. The gates are open and the fuel can be moved to or from the reactor core while remaining underwater. And the water not only keeps the fuel rod cool, which is not true, but acts as a radiation shield. Yeah, but the physical atoms are still lost from the pool because there's no containment. So they're pumped up to tall, skinny stacks on site. And a lot of it will land in the local area, which is usually all farms. Very active farms. So you can see the gate at the top of the screen. Interesting about these reactor cores is they don't need oxygen to go into to stay in a chain reaction. Well, they can't handle oxygen. Oxygen, if you just expose the fuel to oxygen, it'll detonate. But that's the problem with it too, is that it doesn't need oxygen, and so once it goes bad, so if you put it in a hole in the ground, so to speak, where they want to store it, once you seal that up, eventually it's going to melt down because there's no containment. It eventually melts down, and everything else will melt down with it. Electric air pumps are used to inflate these seals and keep them inflated as air leaks out of them over time. Electric air pumps that are running on the grid. These pumps are powered by electricity from the grid and not by backup diesel or batteries. The batteries are actually a lie. Like, the best way to visualize these reactors, they need 1 million gallons a minute of water just to keep cool every minute, in 1 minute. So that's equal to 4,500 tons every minute. It's equivalent to 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks. And you're stood on the side of the road. Imagine 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks pass you every minute. Can you visualize that? Probably not, right? Because it's absurd. But that's how much water we're talking about each minute to keep these things from going into a meltdown. It's 4,500 tons, 1 million gallons every minute. So 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks have to shoot past you every minute so the reactor doesn't melt down. And when it melts down, it contaminates most of your planet within about 3 weeks. If the seals lost air, they could lead to significant water loss from the pool, even if there was no direct physical damage to the pool from the earthquake or tsunami. But they lost it anyway. They blew up right away, right? So this is what it looked like. Uh, 2 days before they wrote that story. The Union of Unconcerned Scientists, like everybody else that was paying attention, would have seen these pictures. And they would have known the gates are FUBAR. Even if there was no direct physical damage to the pool from the earthquake or the tsunami, and they forgot to leave out the word explosions. By the way, the earthquake caused, number one, the meltdown. Once it melts down, then nothing else matters because everything is going to go. You're burning at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. Everything else is going to burn too. And you can't pour water at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. You can't get close enough with the water before the water goes poof. We saw an example of this in the United States at the Hatch nuclear plant in Georgia in 1986. The reactor is very similar to they're actually identical as the ones at Fukushima. And the hatch gates, the line supplying air to the inflatable seal was accidentally closed, and the seal lost pressure, created a leak. And by the time the problem was identified several hours later, some 141,000 gallons of water had leaked. 40,000 gallons of water is not a leak in several hours. That's a flood, right? Calling that a leak is absurd. And the industry will not use any other word, no matter what it is. If it lost 300 billion gallons, they would say it had a leak. They will not use any other word on a leak. which makes them very dangerous people, don't it? Well, you can call them people, but there's a lot of us out there will argue with you that you can't prove they're people. They don't have any of the attributes of people. About half the water in the pool is gone in just a couple hours. Oh, they forgot to put a leak there. I got to write them and tell them to fix that. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission document goes on to note that if the water level had gotten low enough to expose the fuel to high radiation levels around the pool, would have made it difficult for workers to fix the problem. They're talking about the Hatch plant, right? Was it Hatch? Yeah, the Hatch nuclear plant in Georgia they're talking about. The closed airline, once the fuel is exposed, it catches fire immediately. The zirconium claddings will burn at 1800 degrees. That'll ignite the uranium plutonium pellets. They'll burn at 9,000. That'll light everything else up. It'll evaporate the rest of the water that's in the pool. The closed airline in the Hatch case had the same results. The lack of electric power, the air pump inflating the seals in Japan could have. The only difference is that in Japan they actually blow up. I know that sounds crazy. Telling the truth is probably one of the biggest crimes you can commit when it comes to nuclear, isn't it? The spent fuel pool appears on the right side of the diagram. The reactor vessel's reactor core appears on the left side. And the refueling platforms used to move fuel assemblies one at a time between the reactor core to spent fuel pool through an opening in the spent fuel pool wall created by the removal of the gate. That's the gate there. There's two sides to it. The only problem was the buildings were annihilated, lost their entire inventories in just a day and a half or so. But don't tell anybody, it's a big secret. Overhead view to radiate spent fuel bundles being transferred from the reactor cores. So they actually they leave one wall up, they'll bring it in, put it in the middle, then they'll close the other wall, and then they'll drop the other wall. And I guess, is that how it's done? But that's not what happened in this case. The Union of Unconcerned Scientists wrote that story to manipulate you, deceive you, and trick you, and disarm you from being able to protect yourself or your loved ones. Pretty terrible thing to do, eh? That's just nuclear. Anger greets Khan in Fukushima trip. This is the Wall Street Journal. Don't expect anything but lies out of them, too. April 22nd, 2011. That's 1 month and 10 days later. Japan's Prime Minister faced angry criticism as he visited the area around the damaged. Like when you see these buildings and you only call them damaged, that's some serious flaws. As he visited the area around the damaged Fukushima nuclear complex on Thursday, a day on which the plant operator released hard data on the scope of a leak of highly radioactive water from the plant earlier that month. They had a leak there, folks. Go figure. How can you have a leak there? Everything looks so good. What do I know? Prime Minister Nato Kan traveled to Fukushima Prefecture to meet with his governor and announced stricter evacuation standards for the area extending 12 miles from the plant. 40 days later. That's the definition of insanity, is that they done that. Japanese nuclear plant operator was plagued by scandal. So TEPCO was plagued by scandal. And this was March the 23rd. So this is 12 days after Fukushima happened. This story showed it. This was a great story. For years, the TEPCO, the operator of the Fukushima plant, had been widely criticized for deadly accidents, improper inspections. The Fukushima disaster is the tragic nadir in a history of poor management at the company's nuclear facilities. In 2003, the then president of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, gave a speech addressing what, until then, had been the biggest scandal in the history of Japan's largest energy utility company. In 29 incidents the year before, nuclear power plant maintenance documents have been falsified. TEPCO has been forced to take 17 nuclear reactors temporarily offline as a result. And TEPCO CEO and 4 other top executives had to resign. Because they love you so much. Today, though, those words must ring hollow to the people who have received high levels of radiation following the accident at Fukushima 1 power plant, and to those who have been evacuated and may never be able to return to their homes located near the plant again. May never. They didn't evacuate them because they didn't want people being found dead in perfect homes, right? And then the only thing you can blame it on is the nuclear industry. So the nuclear industry had to get them. They didn't want them to evacuate. They didn't want dead bodies in the streets and everything else from radioactive fallout, because it would have been bye-bye nuclear worldwide for that one. But yet that's exactly what was happening. The numerous past incidences were in no way isolated mistakes made by individual employees. Instead, they were the results of a corporate culture at TEPCO that had allowed hair-raising breaches in safety to occur. Hair-raising breaches. A nuclear division spins out of control. No pun intended, I'm sure. First, we must admit that we had no clear rules to judge whether equipment was fit for service, which is still available. The speech is still available on TEPCO's website at that point. I'm sure they fixed that one. He said there was no rules addressing the fact that machinery and equipment generally wear away or crack with the passage of time, so equipment was used as long as such flaws didn't pose safety hazards. And therein lies the problem. When something was unclear, TEPCO engineers apparently made arbitrary decisions. They repeatedly made personal decisions based on their own idea of safety. Their own ideas of safety. I haven't heard that one before, have we? And over time, the nuclear division appeared to spin out of control. The engineers were so confident in their knowledge of nuclear power that they came to hold the erroneous belief that they would not have to report problems to the national government as long as safety was maintained. In the end, they went as far as to delete factual data and falsified inspections and repair records. They also attributed another dangerous trait to the engineers: the high degree of technical specialization required in nuclear power generation, he warned, had hampered flexible personnel changes in the nuclear power division. Exclusive circle of engineers who defied checks by other divisions, including the management. And make no mistake, every country has these particular attributes. The 2004 manuscript is only one testament to the nuclear power giant's troubled approach to crisis management. Both before and after the speech, an impressive list of incidences continue to grow, including deadly accidents. During the 80s and 90s, in several incidences, TEPCO falsified data in voluntary inspections, including the number of cracks in the reactor pressure vessels. 1,000 psi. The last thing you need is cracks, isn't it? In 1991-92, the safety vessels Reactor 1 at the Fukushima plant, which had gone online in 71, was tested for leaks. According to TEPCO, workers pumped air into the safety vessel in order to reduce the rate of leaks. That's the first one to blow up, by the way, in 2011. In 2000, a reactor at the Fukushima plant had to be shut down because of a hole in the fuel rod. I know they had crushed fuel rods in some of the fuel pools that have been there for decades. They couldn't retrieve it, right? Similar incidents had already occurred in 1997-94, in which radiation had been released. Is anybody surprised? In 2002, cracks in water pipes were discovered at the nuclear power plant. In 2002, an engineer with the United States firm General Electric, which manufactures 3 of the 6 reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Yeah, General Electric. Should never forget what they done to us. Also raised the alarm bell. Inspections had not been carried out on a total of 13 reactors at the TEPCO plants. He showed the Japanese nuclear regulatory authorities 29 instances of falsified data cover-ups, a development that led to the resignation of in 2002 of top TEPCO executives. 2006, radioactive steam leaked. They're only allowed to use the word leak. That's the only word they're actually allowed to use when something happens. From a pipe at the Fukushima plant. Like, the numbers we're talking about are catastrophic. So how are you going to fix it? Because you can't fix that without someone getting lethal doses. The company was also accused the same year of falsifying data about coolant water temperatures in 1985, 1988. The data had then been used during mandatory inspections of the plant in 2005. In 2007, further falsified reactor data from TEPCO emerged. In 2007, at least 8 people died. The Kashiwazaki Karawi blah 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 nuclear power plant was badly damaged in an earthquake. Pipes burst, fire broke out, radioactive water leaked. No matter what it is, leaked. It was 600 trillion gallons leaked from a spent fuel pool. Radioactive water leaked. Fires broke out in a spent fuel pool is what they're saying. Fire broke out and radioactive water leaked. So water leaked, the fuel caught fire? Is that what they're saying? Because what else can it be? And I'm not familiar with this accident. I got to look this up. Leaked. Everybody who works in the nuclear industry should be checked for leaks. If you find a leak, you should stick a big piece of cork up in it. TEPCO had to decontaminate the defective buildings. You can't decontaminate a building. It's radiation, stupid. It's like, how would you, I don't even know how to say it without being gross. I don't know, I'm not going to say nothing actually, because probably better that way. TEPCO had to decontaminate defected buildings. You can't decontaminate a building once it's radioactive. The nuclear power plant remained closed for 1 year, so earthquake safety, which allegedly already been good enough, could be improved. Later it was determined that TEPCO had missed 117 inspections at the site. Tis. In March 2009, another fire broke out at the same plant, resulting in 1 employee injured and 6,000 people in the community, most likely with lethal radiation doses that destroyed their health in increments over a decade. On March the 2nd, 2011, just days before the start of the current earthquake catastrophe, Japan's nuclear regulators lobbed accusations of mass negligence against TEPCO. Lobbed it. It alleges that TEPCO had failed to inspect 33 pieces of equipment at the Fukushima plant, one of the sites of the current catastrophe, including the central cooling system elements in the 6 reactors and spent fuel pools that hadn't been inspected according to the regulations. And the company has since admitted to having made the error. Who's going to punish them? Nobody. Who's going to hold accountable? There is nobody. They're their own checks and balances. And no matter what happens, it was a leak, right? If the plant meltdowns and just blows up and loses its entire inventory, they'll say it's a leak. Oh, it had a leak. That's what they've done for 4 reactors. At the same time, TEPCO also reported to the nuclear regulatory authorities that it not only failed to do the 33 inspections at the Fukushima Daiichi plant, but also 19 further inspections at the nearby Daini plant, which leaked heavily too, by the way, / lost their inventories. Some experts have already been warning since 1970s that the Mark I reactor, produced by General Electric from the U.S. and also called the Fukushima design, was not constructed to survive a combination of an earthquake and tsunami and a bear farting in the woods. Only days after the earthquake, 2 engineers who helped build the plant confirmed at a press conference that serious construction errors have been made. Many backup systems for emergencies have not been built at the plant. Many backup systems for emergency had not been built at the plant. That's such a reassuring statement, isn't it? Well, we're going to do it. We just didn't get around to it. You know how it is. You win some, you lose some. It's such a crazy story, though. Don't worry. They only do it because they love you so much. It's nothing personal. Their kids needs a lot of money for their college degrees, right? They gotta lie. There's nothing they can do about it. Yeah, mostly you'll get sick and die because of their mistakes, but they're better than you, so it doesn't matter. What is going on here? Looking at the situation today, statements made by TEPCO spokesman in March 2004 seemed bitterly ironic. He pledged that TEPCO had learned numerous valuable lessons. That's the scariest statement imaginable. From the 2002 perpetual scandal. One of the most important was that information should always be shared. They must have done some laughing that night when they were drinking sake. TEPCO appears to have reported to the Japanese government only those things it was unable to keep secret. That sounds a bit right. It was only when the shell of one of the reactor buildings exploded live on television on March the 12th that the world became aware of the true extent of the accident. Well, they still don't know, do they? When the shell, it was the reactor core that detonated. The hydrogen is created by the meltdown itself. And then the detonation is a result of the meltdown. Saying the shell of the building exploded is just frightening. To tell you all this truth about the previous history, and then they lie to you about that. As a result, 5 days after the tsunami, the Prime Minister, Naito Kan, himself visited executives at TEPCO's headquarters and showed at the flabbergasted engineers what is going on here. He reportedly accused the TEPCO officials of placing the well-being of their own company above that of the Japanese people. Of course they did. And what did the Japanese government do? They kept TEPCO alive so you can blame them instead of the nuclear industry. And they can go bankrupt, the nuclear industry. Means all of humanity and the species go bankrupt. Lack of red blood cells. The engineers reportedly considered pumping ocean water mixed with boric acid into the damaged reactor 1. Once that blew up, you're not going near that. You are not going near that puppy. On the morning of March 12, in order to prevent a threatening total core meltdown. The disaster is 60% man-made, and they failed in their initial responses. This is some of the pictures they're showing you too, by the way. This is Medusa, we lovingly known as Reactor 3, the plutonium mixed oxide fuel reactor. Black smoke rises over Reactor 3. That's the French government, right? And the Japanese media. Black smoke rises over. No. Nuclear meltdown emissions are pluming out of Reactor 3 remains. Here. A man is screened at an evacuation center for leaked radiation from the damage. For leaked radiation. They must have a million ways to say the word leak, do they? On March 22nd. You can't quantify contamination with a gamma counter, right? You gotta consider the alphas, the neutrons, the betas, the X-rays. And once that Geiger counter is exposed to a lot of radiation, it ceases to work. It has to be sent back to the manufacturer, and if it's still usable, it has to be recalibrated. You can't test people all day long with the same piece of equipment because it stops working once it hits a certain number. But all is well, they bowed, so all is forgiven. It's just the 8 million species in the next million years. thick white smoke billowing from number 3. Hey, this is great. You had black smoke coming out of number 3. You had white smoke coming out of number 3. And they both refuse to acknowledge that the building doesn't even exist. The reactor cores and the fuel pools are gone. Every nuclear scientist looked at that picture and was like, well, the reactor's gone. The fuel pools are gone. No, Dan, it's white smoke. If you were on like a Tarzan swing where you were swinging, you swing right through that. When you passed through it, you'd be dead when you came out the other side. That's the top of Reactor 4, or what's left of it. Reactor 4 sure went pop. It's all great till something goes pop. And so you show this picture here and say that's the fuel pool. Again, this is absurdness. When they show you this control room at the plant's number 3 reactor seen on September 2010 photo. It took them 7 years before they went back in that building, and that was just a couple of bloggers. Nobody's going in that control room ever again. Please talk to an evacuee at a shelter in the city of Fukushima on March 22nd. A total of 300,000 people are thought to be in evacuation centers or temporary accommodations. Workers in radiation protection suits. Like all of these things they're wearing, these paper suits, these useless. Like TEPCO used to say they burned 7,000 paper suits every day. And their incinerator on site. They got a new incinerator they built a few years ago. Big one. It's like 15 stories high or something. You can't destroy radiation, by the way, by burning it in an incinerator. Just liberate it back into the environment. In radiation protection suits, I love how they do that, right? This stuff can't protect you. These are not nuclear scientists, okay? These are not nuclear academics. These are not nuclear corporations or companies or anything else. These are the most vulnerable of society. If I got your Geiger counter, okay, let's roll. Volunteers from the Japanese Red Cross Society trying to reach victims of the tsunami by bicycle because of fuel shortage. Yeah, the gas stations were all looted right away by the stoic Japanese. Tokyo Fire Department. Now, we've covered a few stories about this, by the way. They didn't know what a nuclear meltdown is. They were never trained to go deal with a nuclear meltdown. So they were perfect for the nuclear industry. The elite hyper rescue team were dispatched to fight against the meltdown at the Fukushima plant. Suggesting that they stopped the meltdown is what they're saying, right? Once one of the reactors melted down, you can't go near the other ones because they all melted down in a 6-day period. This is a picture behind Reactor 4. This is the common spent fuel pool. It's at around 11 million pounds of nuclear fuel. That's all gone. This is on the same street as Reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's right. It's west of Reactor 4. It's just like 150 feet away or something. Why is it all pixelated out? Is that an interesting question, or am I just a drama queen? A family eats a meager meal in a makeshift evacuation center. The death toll from the earthquake tsunami at that point was 9,000, with 15,000 people missing. They were considered dead eventually. Rescue workers such as this man in the city, I can't pronounce it, has been looking for survivors and burying the dead in the aftermath of March 11th. It was horrific tragedy. Like we all, anybody that's old enough to remember, I watched this original footage. It was unbelievable. I had made a video on the next day about the reactors, because the video or video came out of Reactor 1 detonating. I was like, well, we's in real trouble, folks. Including an 80-year-old woman were rescued from under the rubble in the devastated city of March 20th, 9 days after the tsunami. It was heartbreaking. It didn't need a nuclear accident at all because it was a terrible event, right? The self-defense forces prepared to spray water in the direction of Unit 3. In the direction. You can't go near it. This was symbiotic. The reactors had melted. Reactor 3 was long gone. On this date, March the 18th, all the reactors had detonated and lost their inventories. There was nowhere on that site you could go without getting a lethal dose. And in this picture of Reactor 3 detonation, the video clearly shows the fuel pools with around 8 reactor cores and the reactor core ejected into the buildings. And the stump that's left over quantifies that assertion. This fleet of fire trucks was used in an attempt to cool down the fuel rods at the Fukushima reactor. This fleet of fire trucks. Well, there was no way to drive a fire truck there, first off. 6 to 1,200 miles of the coastline was ripped off. It left there was a chunk out in the Pacific Ocean the size of Texas, 2,000 square miles of debris that was sucked off the land, up to 10 kilometers inland. A farmer checks leaks in the town of Yamamoto. Authorities told people, that's March 18th, in Fukushima Prefecture not to eat certain vegetables because of radiation. In Tokyo, residents have been advised not to give tap water to babies because of elevated levels of radioactive iodine. You can't have radioactive iodine without all the other isotopes. For every iodine 131 they're talking about, there's 10 times iodine 132, 30 times iodine 133, 31 times iodine 129. A chilling photo comparison of Chernobyl and Fukushima. Chilling photo comparison. April 22nd, 2011. There have been 2 level 7 nuclear disasters in history. One of them created a no man's land in Ukraine, where after 25 years the government is still paying hundreds of millions of dollars to contain radiation. But Fukushima is like a potato chip and walking in the sunshine, right? The other disasters unfolding right now in Fukushima, the government has evacuated all people within 19 miles of the nuclear plant. It is unknown when they will return. Bookshelves in a town outside of Chernobyl, 2006. That's 2 miles from Chernobyl. So whoever went there is an idiot. This is Fukushima on April 21st. It still looks that way today, except for all the deformed spider webs. It only took them a couple of years to go in and reopen these playgrounds. Don't worry, they put Geiger counters there that don't work. Then I count in microsieverts, right? 3,000. They put 3,000 Geiger counters, big ones, in Fukushima City with over 300,000 people to trick them into staying there. Playground is seen in the kindergarten deserted town of Fukushima, which is within sight of nuclear meltdowns. Then they show the Ferris wheels in Chernobyl. A Business Insider. What do you expect? A deserted hospital near Fukushima. This is the Fukushima hospital, I would imagine. You can see the earthquake has cracked the roads. They left 90 people with Alzheimer's and dementia there and just left them to wander around and die. There's so much radiation, he couldn't go back and get them. He's nuclear safety drill near Chernobyl. I actually got a picture I can show you comparing Fukushima to Chernobyl. A man walks through a deserted town near Fukushima in a paper suit. And they call it a protective suit. It can't protect you. In the deserted town of Fukushima, this stuff can't protect you, right? What the hell is going on? Oh, they came prepared tonight, did they? The nuclear industry? What the hell, man? Man, oh man. These guys are crazy. You're going to like this one. This is rich. It has 61 votes. Did the nuclear industry poison Earth and every species for millions of years with nuclear fallout? Yeah. 61 votes. I don't know if I ever got 61 votes on my site on a poll. Hey, rather than spam me, give me a call at 709-589-4406. Let's hear it. Let's hear your argument. I got 24 people and 61 votes. I almost got 3 times more votes than I got people on the show. Are they still going strong, I wonder? Let's hang around here for a few minutes. You can call in if you like at 709. If you're pro-nuclear, please call in. Please stand up. Please stand up. That's pretty astounding. 61 votes. 61 votes. Hi, everybody. Message deleted. Let me see what he said here about Dana. Decade-old lies. Durnford is a low life. I'm a low life. Thanks, Dana, for doing that. Let's see what the next one said to me. That's another lie about the Geiger counters. Dana's such a bastard. Yeah. Dana Nasana got it right. Look, right off the bat, he said, "Begone, trolls." That was one of the first comments. Well, there's 2 comments. That was one of the first ones. The other one is hid behind that there. And look at Dana's premonitions came to reality, didn't they? Begone, trolls. Might be gone, I don't know. Bastard. Oh, that was quick. Thanks, Dana. You hurt my feelings. Somebody's angry. I didn't do nothing. Durnford's too much of a coward. How we doing? Let's check the poll one more time. That was kind of entertaining. Look, all I'm doing is showing you the evidence. How can I be a bad person for showing you the evidence? And just the old headlines are the best headlines. A dog near Fukushima. April 21st, 2011 photo. Dog walks across the street in the deserted town of Fukushima. Some pretty mild stuff. A dog near Chernobyl. So like they distract you with this kind of like a dog and somebody walking and blah, 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 right? Let me show you an actual comparison photo. Let me see what the next story is. Okay, so let me go back to it. Let me just dig up a picture. I got a picture I done a while back. There we get my act together. Okay, here we go. I'm pretty sure I know exactly where it's to. All my spider senses are tingling. Oh, here it is. I got a folder with this single picture in it that I created. There's Fukushima. That's just one of the reactors. There's Chernobyl. And Fukushima, by the way, was 4 reactors that done this. This one, in 2013, they claimed they got all the fuel out of the pool, which is 150 feet above the stump there. This dwarfs Chernobyl. And there was 8 reactor cores at the top of the building are gone too. Each of the reactor cores are equal to 100 Chernobyls. Each one. The truth don't matter. How Fukushima is the Deepwater Horizon of nuclear accidents. April 11, 2011, that's 1 month later, the 1 month anniversary. And what they're showing here is not Fukushima, it's a pretty grainy picture, right? This was an oil depot where they were storing around 1,100 kilograms of depleted uranium, and that's what's burning there, the infernal. They put out that particular type of picture because you can't figure out what's really going on. But because we have the power of hindsight, this was a catastrophic event at that facility. But Fukushima was brutal, but never underestimate this other stuff. The writer admitted they succumbed in the early stages to peer pressure and a basic understanding of the science to reassure readers that Fukushima was not Chernobyl. Wow. Goldie writes, last year's Gulf spill, corporate and government incompetency and misinformation has made the severity of the Fukushima leak. So does the building to your left look like a leak? It was such a little leak, the people behind me all pretended that they were 150 feet above the stump to your left. And they weren't the only ones. It's quite the leak. At Chernobyl, the worst was over in days, the last of the graphite fires. Yeah, because it was a different fuel. Where Fukushima, pure uranium, pure plutonium. The worst was over in days, and the last of the graphite fires were extinguished within 2 weeks. Compared to Fukushima, the initial release of radioactive material was immense. And the fallout, that contaminated the planet for millions of years, setting off radiation alarms 680 miles away in Sweden. But with a half-life of 8 days, the threat from iodine-131, the radioactive contaminant with the most immediate health impact, dissipated quickly, they said. What a disgusting thing to say. For every iodine-131, there was 31 times iodine-129 with a 15 million year half-life. And the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is the curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the plutonium isotopes. And plutonium kills all the animals and all the experiments with multiple tumors. And the majority of the tumors are in the skeleton. And so for developing adolescent creatures and animals and insects and humans, it means you're producing radioactive stem cells also. Also, it's hard to get a clear picture because the reactors are so radioactive in places that it's not safe to go in and get accurate data. Safe. There's an understatement. And Goldie is right. Fukushima is a slow motion disaster. No, it's not a slow motion. It was a catastrophic event. They're not pretending they're on top of a building that don't exist for something to do. Like I don't really expect many people to be on my shows. First off, I'm censored incredible the amount. It's absurd how much censorship is. Like there's never been anybody in history that done an educational program against the nuclear industry. It's never been done. And I can understand why when you think about all the attacks I've suffered. You think about how many times they dragged me into court and gave me gag orders. It's not hard to imagine nobody had the stomach to put up with it. I don't even have the stomach to put up with it. We got no choice. Fukushima is a slow motion disaster, one which will likely fade from the headlines long before its emissions are capped. You're not capping. Like that's such a bizarre statement. You're going to cap the emissions from nuclear meltdowns like it's BP oil or something. How are you going to cap something when it comes to nuclear that has already happened? How does that work? You have to put a cap around the whole planet to shield it from the other. It's just such an interesting industry that they're so terrified of facts that I'm under siege all the time, right? And like, if you look at the research expeditions that I done for 6 years, it's 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. Now, I done the research expeditions because we had endless headlines of species, catastrophic species die-offs. All species, emaciated whales, emaciated birds, emaciated seals, emaciated sea lions. Neptunium-239 dispersal, that decays plutonium-239, by the way. That's only based on 20 days of radioactive fallout covering the entire planet. That's TEPCO's numbers, by the way. This is the plutonium-239 dispersals. So we launched research expeditions for 6 years. And in the first year, we discovered the species to your left are exterminated. So that's why we went back for 5 more years to see if the species to your left had started to recover. They didn't. It was worse each year, believe it or not. And the species to your left, right, there was 600 algae, and in the 600 algae was 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones. Like little shrimp, right? They were gone. Now, there was a lot more than that, but that was, there were named species. We're talking about 5,500. The species to your left, there was, let's take about starfish. There was around 78 species of starfish. Each species came in multiple vibrant colors. They're all gone. There was incredible diversity of clams and razorback clams and manillas and little neck clams. It was oysters, it was scallops, multiple species. There was gooey ducks. There was snails and periwinkles. There was, like, for the shell species, there was incredible diversity. Probably another 10 other species, not counting mussels, which covered everything. They're gone. There was around 76 species of coral. There was around 74 species of sponges. They're all gone. There was, you see those brown ones up there? There was around 77, 78 species of sea anemones. Each species of sea anemones came in multiple vibrant colors. They're all gone. And because the radioactive fallout is real, I know this. I went out and done the research. And I was out there for 6 years. And there's 27,000 islands up there. So I used to go up there and meander. This was the typical weather. See, these are about the size of your thumb. That's the most species I've seen on the entire coast. And this was, I can't remember the passage. It's up on my website. And so I was out there for years and years and years. And the species to your left, those species rather there are exterminated. That's not an opinion. It's not a conjecture. I know for facts because I was out there for all these years. The species didn't come back. And you can't wish that away, okay? You can't pretend that didn't happen. And we're talking about highly visible species. There was much more going on there that the average person has no concept of. And that's fine. It's a difficult story, right? Hundreds years after Fukushima plant rubble burned, they were taking the radioactive rubble, over 1 billion pounds of, grinding it up, taking it to other prefectures and cities, and burning it in the local incinerators. There was one incinerator where 3 employees had heart attacks on the same day. Young employees. A genetic passport for major population exposed to Fukushima radiation. That's symmetrical worldwide, right? Radioactive Fukushima, fallout from Fukushima as incinerators being hidden. 300 times more radiation released into the atmosphere from burning debris than claimed by the government. As the government trying to contaminate. So you think about Fukushima, there's some really interesting stuff going on there. You can't get rid of the sewage because it's so radioactive in most of Japan. There was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. There's 13,646 out of 38,000 children with thyroid tumors over 2 centimeters. Now, an adult's thyroid gland is only 3 by 5 centimeters, so a child is around 2 by 2 centimeters. And, you know, when you got pre-Fukushima, was 1 in a million children with thyroid tumors. And so when you got 13,656 out of 38,000, you're talking about 358,000 out of a million children. There's 14,200 children out of every 100,000 children that need open heart surgery to correct congenital malformation. Uh, 6 out of 10 children with diabetes in the Fukushima prefecture. People dying from heart attacks, you're talking about like an extra 8,000 in a single month. So, like, it's not just cancer that you got to worry about. There's heart and liver and lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. There's many illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses that will manifest long before cancer. Cancer is typically latent, but clearly at Fukushima, let me bring up that one, because if not, then Dana's a liar. That's all nuclear industry. I put my phone number up there on every show. Nuclear industry can call in, be civil, and challenge any of my assertions. They won't, because I can bring up the documentation, because I've been doing this for a long time. It's not a game. It's a game to them, of course. Come and spam me till I don't exist anymore. We'll just go in and spam Dana. 64 votes. Think about that statement. 64 votes. I got 22 likes, 21 people on the video, because that makes me a threat. 21 people in my video is considered a threat. So bad they got to come in and spam me with 65 votes. Oh, that was a one-up that time. Thank you, folks. That wasn't spam that time. Thank you. I mean, the whole story's crazy, right? It really is. Let me just introduce you some of the numbers. These old headlines are just... The radiation never goes away, so the old headlines are very important. It's the most important. New headlines are all the cover story. The original there was descending voices. Over 7,500 becquerels a kilogram of plutonium and americium per kilogram. So you got to multiply that by 66.6 to get a square meter. You got to give them credit. They got a sense of humor. You got to multiply anything in kilograms by 66.6 to get the square meter. That's some sick sense of humor right there. 7,500 kilograms of plutonium per square kilogram. Let me... Only atmospheric releases, none of the plant's record discharges into the ocean. Only based on the amount from a single day on top of that. That's pretty convenient. But just bear with me. I'll show you something that you can really appreciate why these numbers are nuts. Hot material is 7 billion atoms a kilogram of cesium. For every cesium-137, that's what they're talking about, there's 100 strontium-90, which are bone seekers, like the plutonium is. Got a frog in my throat, and a frog in my throat, and throat. Just bear with me here. You like this study? This stuff is crazy. This was Dr. Raymond Gilmedy from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico. If I could there we go. And this is such an important study, by the way. Let me start right here. Right there. Toxicity of inhaled plutonium in beagle dogs and beagle puppies. So it's a single monodispersal inhalation. It's a very small inhalation. Tumors, death from radiation occurred beginning 1.5 to 5.4 years. Tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, the liver occurred beginning about 3 years. Bone tumors, 93 dogs were the most common cause of death in 93 of the 144 dogs. Lung tumors in 46 dogs were the second most common cause of death, and liver tumors in 20 dogs. But were the cause of death in only 2 dogs and occurred later than the bone and lung tumors. But on their own, they'll still kill the dog, right? And tumors in these 3 organs often occurred in the same animal were competing causes of death. And that the finding in the dogs suggests similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally on purpose exposed. But it was discovered that human kidneys are at least 50 times less efficient than animal kidneys at removing the plutonium. And because this study was Dr. Raymond Gilmedy from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, which is the United States of America's Navy Research Center. They killed dogs. But, so that's plutonium. All the animals died. All of them, from the plutonium exposures. So think about how much plutonium we're talking about. In fact, the animals' kidneys are 50 times more efficient, less efficient, or humans' kidneys are 50 times less efficient than an animal's kidney. So you're 50 times more vulnerable than the dogs who all died. But the same Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, Dr. Raymond Gilmedy, also done 95 studies. This was another really interesting one. The curium isotopes are the major byproducts in the radioactive nuclear fuel. Curium. So don't worry about the alpha part. Just worry that they're the major byproduct. Because they'll confuse you by talking about the alpha emitting matter. And so what you got to realize is they're the major byproduct, not cesium, not iodines, not plutonium, which is still really very nasty stuff we're talking about, production-wise. But curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, right? And so that's the major byproduct, not plutonium. Plutonium killed all the dogs in all the experiments. And when they talk about that last sentence, the dogs suggest similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans. No. It's not true because the human kidney is 50 times less efficient. So a dog is 50 times more efficient than the human is at removing the plutonium. So the human is 50 times more likely to have the same adverse catastrophic health effects as the dogs. And the dogs had 3 tumors from the plutonium. And now bone tumors, of course, are the most nasty way to go, right? It really is. And these dogs weren't given any kind of relief. One Fukushima may destroy the whole country. Collapse of a whole country is possible. Which is pretty incredible, right? When you think about it and you frame it in that way. $76 trillion becquerels of plutonium-239 released from Fukushima, 23,000 times higher than previously announced. But what's really interesting is actually it was around 250,000 pounds of plutonium was released from the 36 reactor cores that melted down. And that, my friend, is why they're pretending they're on top of a building that don't actually exist. So this is a model of 1 million or 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. This model is based upon 15 days. This is the French government itself model. And now cesium, this is 10 million atoms of cesium-137. And cesium-137 pulses energy for 600 feet. So you have a plume, the animosity equivalent of a snowstorm, covering the entire planet. That'll never go away. And remember, curium isotopes is the biggest byproduct. So whatever you see in there, you can assume that is much worse than plutonium isotopes. But cesium-137 is a nasty one because it pulses energy 600 feet every second. So it can pulse through your neighbor's house or your second neighbor's house, through your next neighbor's house, and then through your house and destroy your chromosomes and your DNA and your cells every second. Your body's going to try to repair that. It can't do that, right? And so then the water filtration system. In 2014, they struggled for years and just announced they think they finally have the ALPS decontamination system operational. But if you go back to 2013, these images, this was the ALPS system. The problem with the water filtration system is the stuff we're talking about, you're talking multiple sieverts per liter. And 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. And so the hoses and pipes that are carrying the so-called radioactive water to the filtration system, you can't step over them without getting a lethal dose or walk past them. Yes, you'll die. Your organs will melt. And 20 minutes later, you'll just drop dead. And in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's lots of documentation of the victims whose organs melted, and what they done was just squat it right down, dropped their pants, and excreted their organs because they liquefied. And that's where some of them, they found them in that position. Others were stooped over with their pants to their knees, had died from the radiation melting their organs. But if you notice, this is August 9, 2014, where they say they think they might have the ALPS decontamination system operational. That was 2015 before they allegedly turned it on, by the way. 2015, which is 4 years after the meltdown started. So there's no water filtration system. The tanks were all filled with fresh water. Because if you fill the tanks up with the water we're talking about, you can't get back on the site. If you have another earthquake, in a place where they have 1,000 earthquakes a year, where they're right alongside the tectonic plates, so there was no way they could fill the tanks up, because with an earthquake, if you decouple the tanks, you're talking about many sieverts per liter. You're talking about 1.4 million sieverts of just beta per 300,000 gallon tank. And what that means is you can't get back on the site. And they have paved over the site. They put steel 16 by 8 foot sheets, and then they had put pavement or cement over that, and then they paved over that, and then they more steel plates over that, and then they paved over that to try to shield them from all the stuff they originally bulldozed down into the ground, so the homeless can go in there originally. Oh dear, how are we doing here? My goodness, I got spammed pretty good, didn't I, tonight? That's really special. Oh, we got another thumbs up. Way to go, folks. We're up to 47%. I'm going to keep going until we get to 50% of yeses and 50% of no's. Because that's a bit of fun. 66 votes. That's hilarious. That's actually really special, eh? 66 votes. All right, so let me just talk about crazies. So the small modular reactors that you hear those connotations all the time. The Canadian small modular reactor is basically a 24-story building. Underground, it's 38 meters or above ground. Yeah, 38 meters above ground, 35 meters below ground, which is 240 feet. That's 24-story building. It's not modular. And the design, they don't even have a full application into the regulatory agencies. But all the models are basically consistent that the radioactive fallout covered the entire planet in about 20 to 30 days. When you look at all the different models, that's basically what you're seeing, right? Well, here's the French model. Another story about the French model. And I think this is the updated version. Right there, is it? No. Yeah, maybe. No, we'll come back to that in a second. So the French IRS and the French government, on August 17, 2014, the story came out. The radiation levels... Now, the story was based on 8 days of radioactive fallout. But the updated model was based on 16 days. And it was 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137. These are catastrophic numbers, by the way. So all the species in the forests and the meadows were getting full-body X-rays also. And so the X-rays are, you got gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas. They're pulsing energy almost at the speed of light, right? And so when they hit each other almost at the speed of light, they don't mingle, per se, right? They deflect off each other. So you got alphas and betas and gammas and neutrons. When they hit each other, they got a ricochet type effect. But it's almost at the speed of light. You have two objects almost at the speed of light hitting each other. We call it an X-ray. And its brutal effect upon everything with replicating cells. Right? And so I've heard it argued and argued successfully that radiation effects are catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. Maybe this is the updated model from the French government. Yeah, this one here? No. This one here. This is the updated model. This is based on 31 days of cesium-137. Remember, for every cesium-137, there's 100 times strontium-90. Strontium-90 is way worse than cesium-137. Cesium-137 is brutal. But that model right there is... Let me stop this. Let me go backwards. So that's 20 days of radioactive fallout. Like, just because you can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it, doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean it's not still right there, because it is. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to assimilate in all plant. This is why the bees are disappearing, because they're bringing back the radioactive pollen. We're trying to get 50-50 votes on my poll. So we're currently at 47 yeses and 53% no. I've never seen the industry panic that much. I wonder why the industry is panicking so much tonight on that poll. What's the catalyst behind that? That they showed up and spammed me that much. Just bear with me here. We're hoping to get a few other people to vote yes on the poll. Here's another headline. Astounding levels of radiation measured in the United States after Fukushima, which of course is going to be Canada too. Hang on here, I'll get to it. Around 500,000 times their so-called normal levels left over from weapons testing, they say. But that's because they refuse to acknowledge all the emissions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. That's the great secret you'll probably never hear anywhere else, only right here. Is the reason fuel is so dangerous is because it's still splitting atoms. And you can't contain it. We never have ever seen anything close to that concentration. It went up day after day after day. And they consider that incredible to see that. It's a matter of life and death, and they're not lying. $66 votes. We need a couple more votes to get us up to 50%. We got spammed heavily by the pro-nuclear community with a no vote. Did the nuclear industry poison Earth and every species for millions of years with radioactive fallout? I mean, the radioactive fallout never goes away. We're releasing it every day for 80 years. It never goes away. So it's the bioaccumulation now has reached the tipping point. .8% of the Fukushima children. Oh, do now. Hang on. So when you got 35.8% of the Fukushima children, 13,646 with thyroid tumors. These are tumors. You can call them whatever you want, but they're actual tumors. Out of 40,000, when it used to be 1 in a million. I said, that's twice I said that tonight, isn't it? I better bring up the little clip. Because otherwise, Dana's a liar. You liar, Dana.
But
there's clear evidence rates have risen. Before the disaster in 2011, the rate of thyroid cancer was between 1 and 2 cases in every million children.
And now it's 358,000 out of a million. And you're talking about radioactive hormones for the rest of their life. So the health impacts from that are going to be quite pronounced, right? There was also the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. This was caused... these are all the stuff we're talking about, by the way, are hot particles. There's no, obesity rates doubled post-Fukushima in the first year in Japan, symmetrically throughout Japan. And that's considered a marker of radiation brain damage, spike in obesity. The sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs, 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur. Well, this is actually the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs is a unique effect they noticed during the ocean detonations, that the sulfur from the salt water would be liberated into these spherical balls, and they would, basically, layman's term, they would ingest uranium, curium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, and everything else, and they become very mobile, non-solutable, and lethal. They're hot particles. And so they pulse energy with an enormous amount of energy, and when you ingest it or breathe it or consume it or drink it or whatever, it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, your bones, and it begins to pulse energy almost at the speed of light. It continues to do that forever. But it's so much energy, it causes permanent lesions to your organs on top of everything else, all the other adverse health effects. But for birds and mammals and insects and everything else, the effects are just unbelievable. We got 67 votes. We're at 48%. Woohoo! We're at 48%. We just need a couple more votes. We're an hour and a half in. You can do it, folks. Nuclear fallout will engulf Taiwan. People should stay home and immediately take off their clothes, throw it away too. It was the same thing for South Korea, done the same thing. They closed all the schools and told everybody to stay home because of radioactive fallout. What Canada done was just brutal. Canada removed the restrictions on all food from Japan after 93 days, while 55 countries banned the food for a decade. And so all the worst food was shipped to Canada because you couldn't ship it anywhere else. And so Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau, what they done to us is just unconscionable. It's unconscionable. And almost everybody in Canada now has health issues because of the consumption of this hideous. I mean, we're not talking just about the radioactive fallout. We're talking about direct poisoning by sending us food from a nuclear wasteland where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, which only 3% of the land. So the land is immediately contaminated right away. The reactors are still melting down. Now, the radioactive material from the reactors, any reactors from the fuel pools that are all with no containment, hemorrhaging it directly into the environment, is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. This is what it's hard for people to appreciate how little can cause so much problems. And it's not, you can't perceive it, right? Because you can't smell it, or hear it, or feel it, or taste it, or touch it. We're at 49%. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I gotta buy a pack of Cracker Jacks to see if I can get a little special Agent Dana ring against the nuclear industry. We're at 51%. Come on, folks. One more. We need one more vote. That's so awesome. And then I'm going to retire for the night. I had a long day. Fukushima plume model shows 1 million atoms a square meter over the west coast after the reactor explosion. That's permanent. Per square meter. That's not, they're talking about on the ground. That's forever and ever and ever. In Canada, this was a study from Canada. And so is the next study I'm going to show you too, by the way. Rain with 20 million particles. Particles is much worse than the physical atoms of radioactive iodine-131. So there was 10 times more iodine-132, 30 times more iodine-133, 31 times more iodine-129. The iodine-132 and the iodine-133 are 9 times more efficient at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands than the unbelievably effective iodine-131 is. The iodine-129, by the way, is a 15 million year half-life. So we essentially saturated the thyroid glands of every species just from those two. And they used that because they got a short half-life, but you got to realize you can't have these plumes without all the other isotopes too, right? I showed you the plutonium, the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs, the americium-239 or neptunium-239 rather. The West Coast, this was a study from Ottawa, Canada, was hit with 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129, which doesn't pulse energy very far. But when it's in your body, and because we're talking about so much of it, per liter rainfall, by the way, with a 15 million year half-life, it's in your body, it's wrecking your chromosomes, your DNA, and your body tries to repair that every second. And can't do that, right? And then it attacks the source and tries to build a sarcophagus around it. Ultimately, we call it a tumor. That could take decades to manifest or get diagnosed, right? Remember, 865,000 extra cancers in a single year, the year after Fukushima in Japan. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. So when you take that study and this study, 20 million particles, and so you got a million of that, you got 20 million of this, and you got 220 million atoms. These are numbers that, if I wrote a science fiction book of these numbers pre-Fukushima, I would have been laughed out of the planet. The planet would have just mocked me relentlessly because they would say that was impossible. It could never happen. That's how significant these numbers. But these are quantified by actual studies. So it's quite frightening. So we need one more vote to even. We need one more vote to even the poll up. We got, score! All right, that's it for Dana tonight. Have a great night. 70 votes. Holy shit. I can't remember seeing that before. Well, yeah, a long time ago, but since I've been censored off the planet. Well, that's quite special. That's what that is. Bless your hearts. Everybody that participated in that. Woo! We got 50-50. We're going to end the poll right there. And before anybody else goes click. There it is. End it. I dib. Where'd it go? I killed the poll. Now it's not even there. Oh, there it is. The poll just showed up. 50-50. I like it. That was quite some spamming, eh? So they spammed me. 35 accounts came in and spammed me. I've never seen that before. Maybe 4 or 5, right? But not 35. Alrighty. We're going to play... Hi, everybody. Thank you, Blue Jay. I'm going to play James Luce has posted 7 songs so far the weekend. I could be wrong. It could be more than that. Who knows for sure. But James has really done something special. He's really done something special. He's got about 180 songs there, anti-nuclear songs. We're going to play the Nuclear Jamaica. A couple of these had me rolling with laughter the weekend. The names of them. Where's it to here? Too Costly to Meter. That's so funny, eh? Divide and Decay. I love these names. Oh, Santa Susana, right? Which is a pun on the Santa Susana nuclear meltdown. It was 460 times worse than Thankful Folly. I mean, you gotta love James, boy. In all honesty, and he really hit something special here. So we're gonna play that song coming up here in a second. I just got to turn the volume on, I think. James hasn't been doing it for that long, right? But my goodness, he's really hit something special. It's absurd what he's done. And he's got 1.39 thousand subscribers all of a sudden. It's a crazy amount in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks or something he's gained. We just need one of his songs to go viral, eh? We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Closeout song is going to be the Nuclear Jamaica. It's pretty awesome. We'll catch everybody tomorrow night. Well, my show tomorrow might be early. I got kind of a special show. It's pretty going to be really good. And I'm not going to give the gig away tonight. I got a pretty special show I already put together. But I need to do it in the daytime, and I can't tell you why. Hopefully it'll be one of my masterpieces. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. Hugs for everybody. Thank you, everybody, so much for helping me to get 50%. The 50-50 vote. Yeah, there you go. Starley says, "Is there one called I Want to Lick Your iPhone Charger?" I should play that clip right now, but we're just gonna play the song. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. I'm gonna put the headphones on to make sure I don't blast you crazy. I'm pretty good, but I make mistakes sometimes. There it is.
Jah guide us, Jah protect us in this land so free. From mountains high to ocean deep, we stand in unity. The mountains sing with the morning sun. The rivers flow, their work never done. But now they bring machines with fire untamed to scorch our land and leave it chained. Oh, nuclear Jamaica, not in our name. We won't let them turn paradise to shame. Protect the land, the waters, the skies. Jamaica will stand, our love never dies. Oh, oh, our love never dies. They promise light, but chaos hides. The atom's price pulls the ocean's tides. From Kingston town to Montego Bay, Jamaica's soul will not decay. Oh, oh, nuclear Jamaica, not in our name. We won't let them turn paradise to shame. Protect the land, the waters, the sky. Jamaica will stand, our love never dies. Oh, 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 oh. The blue mountains whisper, the ocean pleads. Protect us now from these reckless deeds. No more false prophets, no fleeting gains. We fight for love, not the atom's chains. Not the atom's chains. Oh, nuclear Jamaica, not in our name. We won't let them turn